Okay, everyone, welcome to our policy committee meeting of the board. It's February 7th, and we have Tim, Argy, myself, Paige, Frank, Joe, and we even have a guest in the public today. Very exciting. We have a very full agenda, and if everyone's okay with that, I was thinking we could just jump to start with the one that Joe's here to help us with. The second on our agenda, which is policy 1222, relationship with Booster Club. So far, Joe, at our meetings, we've just kind of talked about it in general. We've looked at some other districts' policies, just not necessarily to adopt, but just to see what other people have been doing. And that's about where we landed, right? And then Frank wanted time to talk to you and you have time to talk to coaches. So we're wide open for feedback.
And I'm very interested in your feedback and to hear what questions that you have. The history of our booster clubs here, we started off years ago as one big all sports booster club, which was under our student association accounts. So it was the district owned the booster club. Over time, it really became more difficult to manage the booster club. So we sort of parted ways with the booster club, and what resulted is a series of individual sport specific booster clubs, not school sanctioned. A number of our booster clubs now, in fact, maybe all of them, are 501 private 501c3s with governing bodies in place, boards of directors in place. I would say they're pretty structured in how they do business, and I would say they're pretty accountable to their boards. But I think where some of the questions come up is the district really provides very little oversight over booster club activities. They're separate entities. I did talk to some coaches, and I also did a quick survey of what a booster club role should be. We also asked the question of what it shouldn't be, and I would say the answers were all pretty similar. From my perspective, as the athletic director, I think for me the cleanest, easiest thing to do is finance as much of the athletic program that we can finance. So I just put together a quick list of, what I think what should be financed by a booster club. Banquets. We have end of the year banquets for individual athletic teams. And I know that in the last couple of years, some sports have brought in some relaxation techniques, presenters. Some have done yoga. When you do something of that nature, I think that's something that a booster club could finance. I think gear is something that a booster club should finance. And when I say gear, I'm referring to any item that is going to be given to a student athlete and not collected.
They keep
something that they keep, something that has their name on it. And I believe, I believe that's actually part of that law that, a district can't gift something that a student is going to keep. And also there's some amateur athletic rules where, a district shouldn't be giving gifts. I think off-season events like summer leagues, that are outside the confines of the prescribed sports season, but cost money. I think that's something that, a booster club could support that. A lot of teams do team functions, dinners. Booster clubs play a pretty big role in that. A lot of teams do pre-game meals, especially for far away games. So I think those are things that should fit under the purview of booster club.
Would we normally post pregame meals? I mean, we pay for that, wouldn't we?
No, we don't.
We don't.
No. Nope. That's something that, it's become pretty common. Especially if you have a Friday night game,
Yeah.
students have been in school all day. And they need to get on a bus at 3:30. A lot of times you see the Booster Club bringing,
That's why I asked the question. I
Bringing
thought maybe that
meals
was
into
our
the
obligation, but you're saying no.
no, it is not.
And,
Yep.
oh, go ahead. I was gonna say, you also mentioned the things they didn't think Booster Club should be doing.
Can we get I want to clarify just so we're really clear on. So those are the things booster clubs should be doing. What should booster clubs not be
Yeah.
supporting? Right? Because that's kind of where I want to go first.
And he had
I
mentioned
do
that.
have one question on
Go.
something, well, you put it in the not category. Well, things that are appropriate for booster clubs, you said, like the yoga, like sports psychologist is a big one that's come up a lot now, where I think some of the booster clubs are looking at bringing in people to do more sort of like mental training of their athletes in terms of preparing them for what happens during games or, even practices just in terms of balance and everything. So I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence on that in terms of whether it's, the district hasn't gone down that path yet, but at some point I could see that changing in terms of
Of the mental health
schools,
requirements.
right,
support that district, right?
recognizing that that's an appropriate support for an athletic
Team psychologist.
program. Like, I could see it. We're not there yet, but I
Yeah.
think at some point,
It's like a
things
physical
may-
trainer and then you have the,
right, yeah, right, like,
There,
when I was in high school, no one was taking me. Like, but now, everybody's.
Lucky to get a Band-Aid.
Joe, what
I
about, oh, sorry.
I can tell you that there's, I've been at a couple conferences where it's a growing field. Sports psychology
Yep.
at the high school interscholastic level, it's a growing field. I would say I've probably been to 5 different local presentations by sports psychologists, trying to market themselves towards, school age students,
High school?
high school age students.
I know it's
Because
big
there
in
is
college
there's-
and obviously. pro
It's
sports.
big and it's a growing field. It's a growing industry, and there's pressure on high school athletes. Academic pressure, the athletic pressure. There's a lot going on in young people's lives. It's a growing, industry, and there's a need. So I think it's something that we will be talking about in the near future.
In that same vein, what about again, I am not the person who knows anything about sports in general with that kind of stuff, but what about specialists, like a pitching coach, or say the booster club wants to bring in, again, someone to help soccer people learn how to juggle the ball. Again, not understanding
Coach
myself.
is a good one.
Yeah, pitching coach,
Not a
that was
juggling
special,
coach.
something extra like that or a specialized, is that booster club responsibility or would that be district? Since it kind of blurs in that.
I think when that's been done here, it's been booster club funded. And, that when it's been done, it falls out of the confines of the prescribed sports season. So the fall sports season would run August to November. If you bring in a goalie
The
coach
goalie
to do a
coaches.
summer clinic,
Yeah, that one comes up.
that's something that should be under the purview of the booster club.
So just to clarify what district will pay for then, equipment. But what types of equipment? So what if somebody wants a heater? Is there a limit to the equipment that the district should be responsible for or not responsible? So a batting cage in comparison to heaters for people when it's cold outside.
But I think the equipment that the district should be provided should be specific to the training and the preparation of the student athletes. I see a heater, that's something separate than.
I'm only using here because that has come up in a conversation before, so I'm using that as an example.
But we don't provide regular sticks and bats and gloves and like schools don't provide that anymore, do they, or do they? Like when I was growing up, all that was handed out. Kids have their
All of that equipment is like, I would say they've become very personal.
Yeah.
You know, people have very specific idea of what they want.
And how do we help someone that maybe wants to get into a sport but can't afford all the lacrosse equipment?
We would probably use a booster club for something like that.
Okay.
I was wondering that myself.
Yeah,
Like, with
some
that section,
sports are
but-
really expensive.
Well,
And we do, we do have equipment, we have bats, balls, sticks. We have it. Our phys ed program has
Okay.
those things. But I think it's the preference of the participants to have their
They
own
want
bat, to have their own catcher's gear, or whatever the case may be.
I think what I'm hearing is we can create a very supportive relationship with a booster club where there's certain foundational things that are school district responsibility, foundational, and extras, where that line is drawn, I don't know, but extras is something where it may be kind of like what we do with the Voorheesville Community and School Foundation, you know? Will you guys be willing to? You'd be interested in? I mean, we could lean on them to say, would you be willing to support bringing in this guest speaker? Holding on, that kind of stuff that we would like to provide. But it's not necessarily in the budget or necessarily in our purview, maybe even in a little gray area, and just being able to have that conversation and say, hey, any chance you guys would be interested in supporting something like this? And if we can develop that positive working relationship with these booster clubs, I think it really could work well.
Field maintenance is one that would come up a lot, right? That's our responsibility. Right?
Yes.
So anything field or equipment wise, and I think you're right, Tim, like that going back and forth. But I will use an example of field maintenance for that same purposes. Making those boundaries, understand like what Neil feels is important. I use Neil because he's a director of facilities, as important as proper field maintenance in comparison to what a booster club feels is important for proper maintenance, right? There's got to be that line of this is the district responsibility moving forward. They can make the concern, but really that is still district line. And I think, and I'm just using examples that never have come, well, maybe have come up in the past, not, maybe have come up way in the past, but using that as an example of setting those boundaries and expectations, because what I don't want to see is a booster club paying for our fields to be done over. That's not appropriate, right? We should be owning that. If our fields are in disarray, we should, as a district, be taking care of that.
Well,
In
it
my
sounds to me like this should be something that's kind of a statement of, here's what the district's responsible for, what we're willing to do, what we believe in, and all those things. Kind of establish our boundary. We're gonna live within this sphere here. We're gonna do all that is required of us within here. Outside of that, we're gonna have a conversation with the booster club, and if they're willing to support that stuff outside, great. If they can't, maybe we're having a different discussion, but
Are we gonna have a conversation too?
Yeah, let me
Yeah.
just comment on what Tim said. I don't know that it requires a conversation, because then we sort of own whatever it is that is being provided to the kids. Most of the booster clubs will identify what they think is a need or a want of the program and just provide it without any school district intervention or.
I think you're right. I was just trying to get that, I was thinking we would want to be the owner initiator rather than the booster club being the owner initiator. And
Yeah,
I don't know if I got that right, but
Does that go along with what the coaches would want, Joe?
Um,
Sorry, that's a good seg, in my mind, that might be
yeah,
a good
no, I
segue
think
into
that's a good point.
I would say that in the past, in conjunction with our booster clubs, we've taken on some pretty good projects where, a booster club identified a goal, a large ticket item, that would be beneficial to the program. And, we work through that and accept the donation. So, I think it's okay to have input from the booster clubs to some of those projects.
Like
'Cause-
dugouts would be a good.
yeah, 'cause
so something can be initiated. It doesn't matter where it's
Yeah,
initiated
but it-
from.
yeah.
Okay.
But it should be done in conjunction with the school district and the athletic director, not, you know, we just do it and show up one day
Here's
and
your
there's
dugouts.
dugouts.
It seems like there's a gray area though. Like, even if the booster clubs don't need to pay for it, should we, like,
That's-
even back to the dugouts. So like if we're letting a booster club give the boys baseball in the dugouts, but then the girls softball. it
Then
doesn't-
it becomes that kind of.
So it gets tricky.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
So I think the big projects, I don't know. I think it's recent. I think we had that with the lacrosse scoreboard in the past, and I think at one point the baseball booster club, we did the
We came up
infield.
with the basketball warm-ups between the boys and the girls.
Warm-ups is always an issue, because the
That
kids
was
see that, and it seems unfair, and I can see that, I mean, you know, for being an athlete. And maybe.
I mean,
seeing
it's
what-
tougher
yeah.
to say for volleyball because we're in different seasons,
Mhm.
but I do think that at least volleyball wise, I feel like we do keep it even between
Yeah.
the boys and the girls. And I feel like it's only fair that
So the policy that I was most in favor of, or liked the most, was the Monroe Woodbury one.
Okay.
Which didn't say a lot, but it did have language in it about, booster clubs have to seek advance approval for any use of school facilities or equipment. So that would cover, I think, things like a donation of a dugout or use of a classroom for yoga or, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, and the baseball project, when that was done, you know, they sought district approval, and that was, you know, our Board of Education approved that.
Yeah.
Project, accepted the money. The original dugouts were put out there by the Booster Club. And then there was a tornado which destroyed the dugouts, and the school's insurance policy covered replacing them. And then I believe the other sets of dugouts, I believe, were school
Yeah,
purchased.
we funded the softball.
I do remember the baseball thing, and they went through the right process for sure, but I think in hindsight, then it created issues after the fact.
I agree.
Perceived disparities.
I agree.
Yeah. So I think it was like a lesson learned probably for the district, you know. And I think with the batting cage, as I remember with the facilities committee, Joe did a great job of trying to help the girls softball team work with the boys baseball team so it could be shared.
But I think that's where Joe and I had a conversation, though, is really, should that be the booster club?
I don't
Right?
know,
Like, that's like,
but at least
shouldn't-
he got it to the shared
I
conversation.
totally agree, but I think having that shared conversation is good, but then in the end,
Yeah, I don't know.
that's a district thing. It will be, how's in this right? Is it something that we should be a part of? And that's where I think it's an important conversation for us to at least understand we should be talking about that.
I think because those dugouts were placed on the school facility and then we took ownership of them and were obligated to maintain the
Sure.
facilities, right? Like that's where you get into these. You know, do you own the activities of the booster club? Right, and then you create this type of mind concern, right?
I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, if we had enough funding, I would say the schools are always pay for all these things. I think this has happened kind of because of funding issues, right?
But the sharing idea, I think, is an important step to get us to, so if we kind of agree on that, like, if it's something
When you
that,
can, yeah.
or one or the other, and it can be shared between the two, that should be maybe a possibility of, if equity can occur, it should occur.
Right, but that can be a conversation at the time that the booster club proposes the donation.
Right, which is how it worked this round,
Exactly.
I think, because lessons learned, right?
Right.
Or Joe was on it.
And lights is, you've mentioned lights
Yeah.
earlier, so lights is an issue, like I heard for years complaints from soccer parents, of which I am one, about, the booster clubs paying for the lights. And I know this past year, the district took over paying for the lights, which I think is great. I think there's a community benefit because with people coming at night, it becomes a real community event and other school clubs participate and do fundraising. So I could see that one appropriately being a district expense because there is some other community benefit. So I think that's something we might want to get into our policy in terms of when is it appropriate for district to cover an expense like that? Because somebody could say you don't have to have night games, right? Right. We have fields that are available during the day. But where there's this added benefit to the school community, then I think it's an appropriate district expense. But I can easily see someone taking the opposite position.
But I always say there's, you know, when you work with a group to support, like at homecoming, you know, and you have good momentum on the front end of it, and to make that work, you know, a group of people are willing to fundraise and support that. But I can tell you across the board over time, you know, the people that initiated, you know, paying for the homecoming, they're long gone. And the current, you know, people don't remember the history. So I think inevitably, anything that we agree to do, and I think this, you know, this holds true to the baseball field, you own that over time. You know, it's, you're responsible for that on the front end when they finance the cost of that baseball field and did a lot of the maintenance. There's no sustainability. In a 5-year period, you know, they're not going to remember what the arrangement was. You know, you're going to own it. Anything that you do, you own long term.
And do we, as a district, provide lights to the spring sports season?
We do.
We do.
Lacrosse.
Even though it's not homecoming.
Lacrosse we had one light tower donated by the county, and then we financed the rest.
So I can see that moving there.
Picking and choosing the sports that the district
Right,
supports.
they get
Yeah,
the lights
that makes-
provided by the district.
Right? That
Yeah,
makes complete
but there
sense.
were other events then too, right? Like there was boys and girls lacrosse night games, and there were, wasn't there like, I think in flag football, but that may have been in
They
the
use the
fall.
soccer ones, right, for the football game.
Like,
During homecoming, don't they do
flag
the?
football.
Oh, the
Reversal.
Yeah,
Reversal, yeah.
yeah, we do a series of events during the rehearsal meetings. So that's from, it's fun.
Yeah.
I have a question. So do we have like a boys soccer booster club and a girls soccer booster club, or is it just a soccer booster
It's
club?
a soccer booster.
Just soccer.
And then is it like that for all sports?
Lacrosse is like that though, right? I think they're shared. Or did that switch?
I believe it's shared now.
It is.
Yeah.
Baseball and softball?
How about volleyball, do you know?
Or the same?
Let's see.
Is there a tennis booster club?
Yes.
Golf.
Yes.
So this is equipment stuff, but can we move to the next question of what the coaches thought it should or shouldn't be in a district club?
Or how a policy could help them or hinder them, perhaps.
What a booster club should not be doing, openly discussing performance. The coach or coaching staff.
Fire virtues.
That's a tough one to legislate.
Yeah, and I think not be determining program priorities. You know, a bunch of things like that, which are things that I think are pretty prevalent in today's culture. You know,
I would
People are pretty
refer those
outspoken
as how,
about it.
when, where, and by whom.
but it's mostly related to, you know, crossing the line and trying to influence, you know, athletic coaching related decisions primarily, which that's part of it. It happens.
I mean, Monroe Woodbury, it's right here. Avoid interference with decision-making of any student group, understand and respect the authority of district employees in the administration of their duties.
Yeah.
You know, I think those two things are highlight those comments.
I mean, if we had a policy like this, could it then help them just be like, well, this old policy? Do you think it would help them at all?
I do.
Okay. I mean, I think it can't hurt
I think that,
to provide on that.
you know, from conversations with Our booster clubs are very active. They work very hard. And there's, you know, there's some that want to exert influence, you know, I can't put it any other way. They
It's passion.
try to exert influence. And I think
it's a very good way.
something in writing, I think the coaches would feel supported. Because that dynamic does create challenges at times from coaches.
Right.
You know, and if I go into more detail, sometimes, and this is very difficult for a coach, when any parent wants to have a discussion about who should be playing where and those types of things, I think anything you can put, you know, in paper to support, you know, coaches in that respect would be appreciated.
Yeah, I'll say, I brought this up with Frank. My oldest son goes to a different school, and at the beginning of every season, they do a meet the coaches. And the athletic director will speak, the coaches will then speak to the parents of their individual teams. And they're very clear that do not talk to me about your child's playing time. Like, I will not talk to you about that. And they deliver that message very bluntly at the beginning of every season. And I think it goes a long way. And if we were to do something similar with a policy like this in place, I think that would be a good opportunity to reiterate these are our expectations of parents and students.
And then also that would have to then reiterate and change the culture and expectations of coaches too, because for a coach to say that, that can be a very uncomfortable thing if you've never done that, right? And like training for the coaches to be able to support them, to say, you have the ability to say this, and here's what you say if somebody comes back at you. Here's because I could imagine that being conflicting for something that we've never done before.
Some coaches do.
Yeah.
I haven't had that much experience, but I remember when Sadie started volleyball, it was Ashley Chersky. She was very clear. She brought the parents in and said, this is this, this is this. And I found it helpful as a parent, but I agree with you, not every coach is going to feel.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, yeah, we address that just on our side, maybe helping them move forward. But
Do you have a sense of how big, I'm thinking of the number of people who are active in a typical booster organization?
I think it varies by sport, to be honest with you.
We're talking about a handful, we're talking about 25.
No, I think it's a handful.
Okay.
I mean, for soccer, it's dozens.
well, that was gonna be what I was gonna say is even for softball, like there might be like a booster club of 3 or 4 people doing it, but every parent will support that booster club. You know, so that, you know, we're all about the booster club. Even though we might not be the ones leading it, you're going to support it. And I think that's really nice about our community is that the parents really, you know, dig in and really want to help support the groups, which causes some of this conversation.
And there are expected contributions of money and time. Concession stand, donations.
Running the huddle. You know.
We're gonna do a raffle and you gotta sell $100 worth of tickets.
I was in a booster club when my kids were little, and we ran bingo. Like, we raised a lot of money, but these people were vicious.
Joe, is there anything we're missing or anything that we should explore further?
I don't think so.
Did you have a chance to look at this Monroe one? Or we can send it your way.
If you can send it to me,
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
I'll do it.
I have a question. If like there's something that the booster club finances, is it like a coach asks the booster club or a booster club goes to a coach?
I'd say more often than not, it's the coach's request. But, you know, there have been times where the booster club sees a need and, you know, it's a project, purchase something, build something, you know, it's kind of going both ways. You thinking about something specifically? You have an idea?
No, I was just curious about like what the procedure was in terms of like the steps for a booster club to do something.
I would say it's mostly district driven, but we have taken on initiatives that have been, you know, brought up by a booster or a community member.
And I think that might, you and I've had a conversation before too, is about coaches, like when they need something, making sure they understand that there's a right, you know, they need to go to you or, you know, who to go to, because that I think can muddy the water too. If they're looking for balls we'll say, and they go to RG first, then instead of you, like you buy the ball. So having that understanding too for the coaches might be beneficial, because you said you can muddy the water.
Do you think there's a lack of clarity now?
Joe, I think Joe would be able to answer that better than me.
People pretty much know what the school boards or school district's supposed to be doing, what we as a booster club, our role. People stay in their lane.
I feel like for the most part, people know.
I think for the most part, people who are active in the booster clubs know.
Yeah.
It's the people who aren't who make suppositions about what's going on.
So this, then having something that one could refer to and say, well, here's the roadmap, here's the policy,
Here's the policy, here's
Yeah.
what's an appropriate district expense, here's the booster club. Booster clubs don't pick the coaches, right? Like having some clear district/community expectations on those things.
Well, it helps
would be
support the
helpful.
decision making. So yeah,
managing expectations.
Yeah.
and you and the coaches feel this would be supported, correct?
All right.
Any more questions for Joe? And Joe, after you read this, if you have any more
Okay,
feedback,
thank you.
either through Frank or myself or all of us.
Thanks, Joe. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Joe, thank the coaches for giving their input as well.
I will.
So as a committee, do we want to maybe in a future meeting, try to look at this Monroe policy and see how we can use it?
I thought some of the other ones went a little too far.
Yeah, and required the district to have to do things.
Right.
Yeah.
Requiring registration.
No disrespect to
requiring
those,
financials, like,
Yeah.
we don't want to police anybody's financials, like tax filings.
There might be some value to adding a little segment about Title IX, like Rochester did. Yes. But other than that, yeah. All right, so I'm just gonna note maybe at our next meeting, next meeting, we'll use the memos on draft.
Yeah.
Okay,
You kind of got all the input we need here. We just got to collect it.
I think so, and then run it back by.
Yeah.
That should have.
And I want to thank RG too, because I think having Scott come in really helps,
That was really helpful.
you know, move us forward.
Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna try to.
I'm gonna have to take a minute to step outside. I'm gonna get a quick.
Okay.
Sorry.
Do you care if we?
No, you go ahead. This is gonna take 30 seconds, I hope.
All right.
So can I just go over this quick?
Yeah.
Just give you an example of kind of the thought process on it. I know that we only had one on it, and then I said to Tricia, I went through with Karen, and then I spent probably like 3 full days, like 48 hours, like at night working on it, and just going through all of them, saying, let's just look at them all. And then Karen and I went back and forth afterwards if I had questions on it, and we just added them. So, and these are all the special education policies that, you know, match or really what the practices of the district are. And I have to give it to our DPS director and our school psychologists. And they really are on top of this. They go to the trainings, they work with, you know, our consultants, like, so they really understand the regs and laws of it. And everything that's going on in this stuff that I've shown you in here really does match. So it's a lot of the stuff that I've drafted is really just verbatim of what NISBA said, and then we can just go through. So I just want to get a kind of frame it a little bit.
And is it still true that, the 4321.8, that one you were like, it's a lot, and you didn't have time to get through all of it?
So I actually, no, so
Oh,
no,
you did? Okay.
I
So we're ready
contacted,
for it.
no, and I drafted it up. I contacted the school attorney for special education, which is different than our other council. And she said, she gave us an understanding of our current policy, and she said our current policy is really good. It meets the needs and of the regulations. So I believe I drafted out a little bit, so,
Okay, great.
yeah, and I wrote
I
notes
just
to
had to
myself.
pop back in.
Yeah, but we should look at them all anyway, just to confirm.
Okay, so let's just start with 4321. That's okay? Does that seem okay, Archie?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
So this one was same, no need to change. There's the conversation.
so,
So I made all my edits or comments in the document, so as we go to each one, if I can just scroll and make sure.
Did you make it in this one or the Voorheesville one?
the
I asked
draft-
people to just draft.
Draft policy 4321.
There's a draft.
For, not 4321.1, right?
No,
I'm on the wrong one. I apologize, I was on 4321.1.
but you have the same note in 4321, actually.
But there's a draft.
I tried to make sure there's a draft for every single one of them so that everyone could comment on the same. I went back in and reviewed things, yeah.
Right.
So let's just see. Frank has a comment that he's compared this to our current policy and it seems to be up to date with the regs, so there really weren't any changes.
On page 3, we have a highlight.
Yep.
Child study team.
See right there, all of that.
Yeah, that's why I changed that to what we call it.
That's our term?
Yep.
Okay.
That's why I highlighted it.
Okay.
I just typed in the word co-curricular.
Sure.
You're gonna drive yourself crazy, but yes.
You might have to do a find and replace.
Credit card use it.
Oh, yeah, we had an extra word in there. Oh, no, not an extra word. It's in accordance within, it should be with legally prescribed. Well, I guess I see what they're saying. Fine, I'll reject my comment.
Thank you for always being the prime editor.
Okay. Real life students. And we're still on the first one, 4321.
We're in draft 432.
I'm sure.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, and, again, Frank, if it's okay, obviously there's cleanup work in here.
Yep.
When you mark this as final and cleanup or whatever, or maybe she knows anything final,
I'm gonna-
still needs to like have all of this.
I'll write a little note right here. Anything final?
Clean the fonts and get rid of this, at the very end, just so everyone
And this is the
knows.
second read, correct? Just-
Yeah, it's already in existence.
Yeah, okay.
There was a pretty big cross-reference list. And I just went into every single one of those, and the good news is we have all those policies.
It's awesome.
I know,
That
and,
never happened.
it is cross-referencing 4773 diploma and credential options for students with disabilities, which is also on our
Yeah, I
agenda.
thought I did that one.
But even if we don't get to it, we already have a policy,
Yep.
so
Doesn't happen often.
I can remove. it. So, just so everyone knows. That's awesome.
Okay. Yep.
All right, so I'm gonna rename this final right in here.
I did it already.
Oh, we did? Didn't show up in there.
Mhm.
Oh, good. Okay. Let's move on to 4321.1, which is provision of special education services in the least restricted environment. We currently have a policy here, so this would not be new to us. I didn't think any changes.
So I wrote a little note saying no need for changes.
Okay, yeah, I didn't have anything there. I think I checked on all, there's no cross references. Perfect.
So 4321.1, I can just cross off?
Good to go.
Yep, all right.
Yeah.
Oh, this one's,
4321.2 is called school-wide pre-referral approaches and interventions. This would be a new policy to Voorheesville, so everyone knows. And I think we determined that this policy deals with CPS and pre-K after a little bit.
yeah, I had to work with the
Learning
attorneys
curve,
on this
yeah.
one and try to figure it all out, and I looked at other school districts. So this one meets the needs of the requirement regulation.
So we have draft. All right, I'm just getting it.
Yeah, I did. the same one.
I tell you, oh, not there, but
You want me to put it in?
Yeah.
Sure.
yeah, I had no comments on this one. I don't see any comments. Yeah.
Let me just,
I'll accept your changes.
The cross references
Sure,
were
yeah,
all
I'll add
fine
the
as well.
just wanna make it So this is called school,
This is the first read, right?
the first reading.
How do you guys, does anyone have an opinion? Do we want to bring the first reads to the next meeting, and anything that's a second reading we would bring after the waiting period for the first reading so they can all go together? Or just do the second reads, but then approve them all at the same time? Because they're all cross-referencing in between them.
Just have to read
It might be cleaner to try to get them voted all at once because they cross-reference each other.
Including 4321 or
Oh, just in general, this whole group.
this whole group?
So there's so many in here that are new, so it's next meeting of the board would be a first read.
So we just do, what, I think it makes sense to do the first read at the next meeting.
Okay.
And then,
Bring them all
so
to
in
vote.
April, we would do, March would be first reads only, April would be for all second reads. And just, then you can, then literally, you could do a cluster
Mhm.
approval as well for all of them.
But the first one, 4321, that's gonna be approved.
That's a second read, so that will be in April.
We'll just
That-
wait.
That's the only one. Are you gonna wait on that too? Do them all at once?
So
first-
432.2 is final and first read, so we'll be at our next.
Yeah, and I'm making a note here on
March.
the one for Jessica, that first read is in March, second
Okay.
read is. We're trying to organize this so communication.
Okay.
It's a lot.
Okay.
4321.3, just for people listening, is allocation of space. This is not a required policy. And currently, in case there's confusion, Voorheesville does have this policy, but it's numbered 42. And I think there's a draft for us to look at.
Yeah, my recommendation was move forward with the 43.2, this one, with the changes that were made if there were any.
So now I've got one question at the end, at the point 10. Do we want to put that policy?
Thanks for using, I said no to that. So,
Oh, that's the one.
You
we
asked a
don't
question
have
about you say non-public school.
yeah. that
We
was-
don't make references to like only names or
We do.
CBA.
So we have kids that go there, but we don't reference out to non-public schools. Like, we only do public for those things. This is parentally placed on public schools, so they
Gotcha.
go to those.
Now I understand. All right. Parentally placed.
No, I think we could do this one. I
So
have
what
to-
is our district area or district?
Oh, yeah, so we don't have any within our district. That's the number. That's-
Well, I think that's what
Yeah.
Trish is referring to. And I
Right.
didn't know, but we have to feed to some other.
We do, but this is really truly only for ones within district. That's what the policy specifically states.
Gotcha.
And we can read it to make sure that I'm
No,
reading the
that's
policy
how I
correct.
read it
Okay.
too. But
Because
then
it's
see,
allocation of space.
district area was confusing because I think it's just within like the district's.
That's what I have read and understood it to be, and I checked with Karen, and she understood it to be that way as well.
Okay, so we don't have any.
So do we just not want to do the point 10 and then remove this as a reference? Or just do the 10 even though it doesn't?
I say remove it, and then if we ever have a school district within it, then we do it.
That was how I was thinking too.
Okay. So let's just
Just-
leave
you're gonna
this
pull
as a
that.
reference, right?
Right.
All right, final on this one then?
Oops.
This is
Now you're in trouble.
Mhm.
Now you're in trouble.
Well, maybe I
we
need to
get
get
more now than.
Well, you did so much work ahead of time.
I just felt like we were getting bogged down on some of this.
Did I miss
Yeah, I
something?
think so.
Yeah. No, just undo it until you get back to the original.
Oh,
Let me do it.
then
I can't do it because you did it.
One, yeah.
Love Google Docs.
Oh, you know, I could probably do it this time. I can't. Well, I undo, it was trying to undo a tab and then it. Sorry. Unfortunate. Let's see if we have I can do it later. Sure, effects. So we don't waste our minutes. The highlight. I'll take care of that outside of our meeting.
So 4321.4 was the old one, right?
But they have a 4321.4,
Yeah, that's not.
so we're gonna renumber our
Yeah, right, yeah.
4321.4 will now be this 4321.3, which is final and ready for April.
Yep.
It's just Article 8, right?
Oh, really?
Let me,
I'll let you do it?
yeah, I'll look while you're
Okay.
doing the rest.
All right, so 4321.4, we're gonna switch over to the NISBA numbering, and we have a draft there.
Yeah.
And then I
the
put
one-
that number on, I get something else. Looking here. Allocation of space is what I'm coming up with.
That's the Voorheesville one, but there should
That's the
also
old-
be one, it's called this draft NISBA sample 4321.4, which is titled Independent
Oh, yes,
Educational
okay. I
Evaluations.
see. Yep.
Okay,
Trisha, I'm just gonna fix this one.
well, thank you. I'll cross out my Trisha fix. Okay, this would be new to Voorheesville, so it would be a first read. Frank has reviewed it and said the language follows our current procedures, so that's great news.
So let me answer your question. The hearing is after they do the evaluation.
My question?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what would be
Because
reimbursable at public expense?
they would do like a second evaluation. So let's say I disagree with the district's evaluation. I would go get another evaluation, we would do a hearing, then the district would have to pay for it if they felt that it was opposite, if mine was the one that they approved. Am I reading that correctly? Because that's the way I see it.
So the district has the right to initiate an impartial hearing to demonstrate that its evaluation, so which evaluation?
The district's evaluation is
The
appropriate.
initial evaluation.
Right, and saying,
That
let's
has been
say,
challenged.
yeah, let's come out and say that Tim goes and he wants his child in a highly, school, self-contained school in
Right.
Connecticut on the beach, right? Making it.
120,000 a year.
Correct. We say, no, we can meet the needs of the child at X place. And your child's needs are here, and you're saying your child's needs are here. So they get two different evaluations.
Oh.
We
so
would challenge it.
So it's reimbursement
Right.
of the expense of the other
Right,
placement.
and yeah, of the reimbursement of the evaluation, because let's say,
Not the place.
right,
But the parent's evaluation has to be district funded in the earlier paragraphs.
correct.
Okay.
But we can say, we can say ours was right in the first place. The district's not gonna pay for that evaluation, therefore the parent would have to pay for it.
So if a parent chose to
It
have their
happens
own
very rarely.
evaluation,
I was gonna say that.
Yeah,
if the parent chose to have their own evaluation, they would then turn to the school district and say, and you have to pay for that.
Correct.
And you're saying,
If
Yeah.
you disagree,
if you just, we go, nah, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna. Yeah. If we win,
I don't think Voorheesville's done this before, to be very honest with you, as far as I know, but that is the regulation.
That's the regulation.
That, I was told that's how this works, because I talked to a lawyer and he said that's what it would be.
So district does its evaluation, it says we can offer free and appropriate public education.
Mhm.
Parent says no. My read of this is the district is then obligated to pay for a publicly funded independent evaluation. Right?
Yep.
Then, but this is the part that's confusing, the district can initiate an impartial hearing to demonstrate that its evaluation is appropriate. So would that only be if the parent's evaluation, which is publicly funded, agreed with the parent?
Yeah.
Okay, so then it's after the evaluation.
Our evaluation happens, parents do an evaluation, it comes back with us, and we still agree that our evaluation doesn't meet theirs. We want to know that ours is right. again, this is harsh, right? Then we would go to the impartial.
Right, so the district, assuming the publicly funded evaluation procured by the parent
Mhm.
found that the district was wrong, the district can initiate a hearing
Yeah, if they disagree with that.
if they disagree. And then if the hearing officer upholds the district's evaluation, then the district is not obligated to reimburse the parent
Mhm.
for the cost of that child's education.
Right.
And the placement that they.
Evaluation, not the education placement. We would still have to,
Well, aren't we paying for it anyway? Like the first paragraph says we have to pay for it.
yeah, but then if we fight it, we don't have to. That's what this is.
But
Listen, I am fine with getting rid of it because we've never done it, nor do I think we would.
I mean, that's pretty harsh, like,
Yeah.
right, if it goes your way, we're not gonna pay for it. That's
Well, you
basically
have
what
to-
it says,
Of the evaluation,
right?
not the services.
I guess services
You are
is different. I
required to do
don't,
the services.
it's not clear.
You're always gonna be required. It's a evaluation is X, and that is what's being utilized by CSE, and that's where it is. You have to, you gotta follow through on that.
The only thing the parent is not getting is their, let's say we go through this and we win, use that term properly, but we win, they don't get their evaluation paid for by the district. And they don't get the services they believe their child is entitled to at district expense.
Double ouch. Double ouch, yes, but the way I read this is, it only gets triggered if the district wants to initiate a hearing to show that it was right in the first place.
Well, yeah, but there could be that time when someone comes in with, I want to send my kid to Connecticut to be on the beach for $120,000 a year. We're going, whoa, time out. No, we got this, well, those services can be provided either by a district or some much more local, inexpensive program.
And by the way, I'm using that example because it's so far-fetched and not true. That's.
I
why
know that. I'm
Okay, I just want to be clear on that.
So, but there are limitations on the public funding of the independent evaluation in paragraph 2. So shall be limited to the same geographic and fiscal limitations as used by the district when it initiates an evaluation. So you can't go get some $5,000 outside evaluation, right? It's still gotta be within the same constraints of what the district would pay. But then if, when I read this again, if it goes your way, you as the parent, then the district can initiate an impartial hearing to say, no, we were right.
So I will tell you that I know someone personally who had this happen a long time ago, but not a partial hearing. And they got a second and they paid for it, not the district.
That would be a second one though.
Right, so like, somebody got a second opinion and they paid for it, like the person that I'm mentioning paid for it. The district didn't. So, I think these things are a little funky.
I
And,
think this is really unclear.
okay, you want me to table it and bring it back to Karen? Like, if there's something that we want to bring back, I'd rather bring it back, have it redrafted, look at it, have her speak to council again, and then go back and forward with it instead of.
Or do you have something you want to suggest?
I'm not sure what this is trying to say, so I don't
Is this a
Have
NISBA
this-
draft?
Yeah.
suggested language for it.
Yeah, this is this one. Why don't I ask Karen? We'll go back on it.
I think it needs clarifying language in that third paragraph about under what circumstances does the district initiate the impartial hearing? And then if the hearing officer determines that the evaluation was appropriate, parent or guardian is not entitled to reimbursement at public expense. But the paragraph above says that the district has to pay for it, that it's publicly funded in a publicly funded independent evaluation.
Hello?
So if the district is funding the cost of front, what are they reimbursing the parent for? And then the other thing that's unclear is and it may be covered in 4321, although I didn't see it, is if the parent disagrees with the district's evaluation, what's their right to appeal? It only references the district's right to initiate a hearing.
I think that might be somewhere else because they do have.
I think so
regulations.
too.
Yeah,
I
Part
just don't
200 has
know.
tons of regulations on that. I don't know.
Yeah, I just don't know where it is, because this only references 4321, and I didn't see it in there.
I wonder if it's in one of those regulations. In the Part 200 regs.
Maybe, but, I just think it's good. Then the last, you see my comment on the last paragraph. You're gonna develop regulations on maximum allowable fees. Isn't there somewhere else where that stuff is,
Yeah, the PPS
Outline?
director does that.
you don't have to draft a regulation, or just point to something else?
The PPS director does set it. Sorry.
So you'll direct the PPS director to
Yeah.
the C&D,
Yeah, because that's
not
what
regulation.
No.
To establish. Right.
I'll change it when we're done.
Sorry, throw a wrench in our plan.
No.
I don't think this
That's
was
totally fine.
No, it's not a mention. It's a conversation, so it's good.
And we'll just keep an eye on if anything's referencing 4321.
We'll make it count. Could you write the comment that you just said for me?
Which one of them?
On the last
Bottom,
paragraph,
the last
that
paragraph?
superintendent will designate the PPS director to such a limits. Sorry, I can't read the for some reason. Oh, there it is. No.
Yeah, we're deciding that this needs to go back for
I
further
agree.
discussion.
Yeah.
And I'll come back to the policy committee in March.
There
So
it
we
is.
won't go to the full board for a first read.
Good.
At this point in time. Okay,
Nice.
so that's still a draft.
That's fine.
Okay, 432125 is called confidentiality and access to audio claims of the SPs, SBs. This is a required policy. I didn't make very good notes to say we already have this. Not to say something.
That's a draft.
It's a draft.
But it's-
No, it's not new. We have one already.
we have it. Okay.
So my first edit was I added guardian, which I would have left out, but they had it later in the paragraph.
Okay.
So. Anyone disagrees?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for doing that.
This one went back and forth between must and then annoying.
Or shall.
So shall now becomes must instead of will. I changed it to will the first time, but since it happens throughout, like later in the policy, I would just raise it for you all to consider.
Which one in legalese is the one that you would suggest? Well,
Will,
all right, then, so
right?
you're the attorney
Must
that understands
ensure
smart.
means it's like,
I know that shall
what
and
we
must are
use.
major differences.
yeah, like I know that stuff better than the rest of us.
I couldn't tell you. It's all about how people are gonna interpret it.
Some attorneys will interpret it.
Take will.
I think it should be will too.
Do them.
Alright, so. It happens a couple other times. I'll look for them as we go.
So if you scroll down to the page 5.
Yeah, I realized I left myself a question up there for,
Mhm.
so I checked with Karen on these things. So everything is electronic access of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking like in this day and age, we shouldn't be having paper copies
Yeah.
flying around.
She does electronic. That's what she said. She has people sign off the page. They no, I've seen it. I have access to it.
That makes sense.
So we don't have to destroy these? Because it's all electronic.
Correct.
I guess you could destroy an electronic file. but-
Yeah. And I'll tell you where some of this comes from. It comes from the confidentiality aspect of it. Years ago, there was an audit for regents exams that we were doing in the district I was in. And you give special education rooms where they get their rooms for regents exams. And, it's based upon what accommodations they get. So we gave that up to the teachers, and one of the teachers had it on their desk in the back of the room by accident. Literally, it was over here, far, far away. And we got cited for that because it was public, even though, because someone could see it. So, the state really does, they really want to make sure that we're following through on all of those specific, regulations and confidentiality.
I'd say this one's in pretty good shape.
So this is final, and it would be a second read. That would be.
This is the first read.
Okay. Next is 4321.6, availability of alternative form of instruction materials for students with disabilities. It's a required policy and would be. Okay, and we have tracks. Okay.
Karen saw no issues.
Yeah, I didn't either. And it doesn't look like you did, and this is having you for
I thought
now.
it was good.
And the cross-reference 6,700 is purchasing, which obviously we're up to date with, required to do that annually. Okay, I would say it's final first read.
Oh, I didn't write final.
I just did, I
Oh,
tried to.
Thank you. No, I'm
Yeah, I did. Okay. First read. March. Okay, next. 4321.7, district-wide and statewide assessments of students with disabilities. This would be the Voorheesville. I don't have written down that it's actually required. I'm sure there's good reason to have it.
Recorded.
Oh, it does say required?
Well,
Maybe
it's Xed out.
Okay, I probably just didn't write it in my agenda for all of you.
Karen saw no issue.
Last year, my first edit was we just sent some extra words.
So they emphasizing.
There's a title that needs,
Yeah, I just highlighted that because,
see that?
I don't know what title belongs in there.
I'm sorry.
Or did you
put it in?
Bless you.
SP, insert appropriate title.
Is it the final for multidisciplinary group, or is that something else?
Chat.
Yeah, it looks like it's an either or sort of thing.
It's, let me double check with Karen. I don't want to misspeak, speak on it.
We have a 504 multidisciplinary committee.
I don't think we call it.
No, we don't call it that. And there is a committee that does it. I just don't want to misspeak on it, so I need to check with Karen.
Do you want to suggest the final once those are?
I would say so.
I'm good with it.
Whatever
Put
the
it in
title,
whatever
yeah,
that title is.
I'm gonna say final once.
And I'm actually sending this to Karen, so.
Okay, and this would be a first read for March.
And I'll have her do that for us and we'll be good.
Do you want me to label it final,
Would you mind?
just to stick there, even though it's
Yeah, I mean,
not
she'll
quite
put
there,
it
but
in.
it's final from the policies.
We have,
standpoint.
She'll let me know it's finished.
Okay, next is 4321.8, with partial hearing officer appointment compensation. And, oh, that is good. This is a required policy and we do currently have a policy, which just dated 2000, right? 4321.8.
I didn't look at that one because I didn't think it was.
Yeah,
ready, so
I didn't either.
I'm happy to look at it now.
And Frank, I know I haven't opened the draft yet, but our old one had an E2, E3, and E1.
Yes. Is that the one that I wrote back to you?
No, our actual Voorheesville policy, that is existing, has an E1, E2, E3.
I believe we're going to keep that.
Okay. Something we said that.
So this one should be referenced then in the one that I had questions about.
The 4221.4. Okay.
Is that rate that's identified in the last paragraph, current? Policy was adopted in 2003.
But that's why I put a little bit on the top of it, because we see the note at the top. I checked with the attorney for special education. Met the requirements and some, and we change it. I updated the top portion to allow for the second read and distinct purpose. I thought that was important because there's no purpose in this. So I thought that was part of this, but it was important to have.
Well, this is a requirement.
It is, yeah, and we have it already.
So do we want to add the,
It's kind of specific, as they have those rates down there. I mean, I can tell you right now, 37 cents per mile is way outdated. And $100 per hour, I don't know, I don't know what you pay these guys, but
yeah.
Let's change it.
that's really outdated. And I don't even know if you want to be that specific. Hourly rate. I don't know, we need to say that in the policy to be, because you're just setting yourself up for updating.
You can say agreed upon terms or.
It's the same language that I was just talking about in the 4321.4. The superintendent will direct the PPS director to establish rates, blah, blah, blah. Right? I think if we
I think that makes good sense.
cross-reference that, then we could just take this.
All right, the superintendent. Do you want me to write in?
Yeah, up to you.
Designate.
$100 an hour page. On that.
Yeah,
Page is smart, she's not.
I might discontinue my education.
Yeah, that could be it. I might as well get out.
I can fix that. I'm just sure.
I was adding the cross reference, but now I realize that 4321.4 is going to be delayed. Because we tabled it. So should I not add it until after?
And put it in maybe just because we expect to come back and do it.
Yeah.
So since we have this one already, we can still do it in April as a revision. Right?
Well,
I don't know.
you've been saying we're gonna do these in, right, in those revisions, but the other one will be 4321.4 will be ready.
You gotta do this one then.
For now, why don't I just write?
Make it.
Or maybe I just add a comment that we eventually. do this.
TBD.
So I'll have Jess fix it all and do all the final cleanup. But we're gonna do, TBD on when it goes on, right?
I guess the other thing we could do, I really would like to do this is if you, once Karen makes her changes to 4 or circle and write in there. I know we don't like to do that.
just so we can get the poll ready, because
Yeah, I mean, I could speak to it at the public meeting, so it's on public record.
Yeah.
That might be a way to do it, right? I know we don't do it by email because then it's not public. But we could, I'm thinking, and then talk about that at the public meeting.
Could you just add the comment and then read the comments at the public meeting? So, as we do now, you don't respond back to the comments.
Yeah, the only reason I suggested is, this is a huge group.
I know.
I think it's important. to do.
I'm gonna initiate that. I think there's probably gonna be some legal rationale for the way that 0.4 is worded.
Yeah, I just don't understand.
Yeah.
We're getting it.
Well, let's see what Karen has to say and then we can figure it out. We have a regular board meeting in between this and our next policy meeting, so we can discuss what Karen finds at that public meeting. Bring us right back up this week. Maybe. I'll think about it. Okay. So I guess we're marking this as final though, right?
Yeah.
8? Yeah,
Final, and
we'll figure it out.
10, we are skipping, or do you want to look at it?
I looked at it, I didn't have any problem with it, but if we don't need it. And
If we need it.
I would skip it for now.
Wait, did we miss 9?
Oh, yeah, we skipped one.
He's catching up here. Okay, 4321.9 is declassifications of students with disability. It's not required. It's, well, my notes are right, it would be in the board's work. Yeah, it's a notice, so it's not required. We have a draft that the team has looked at. The only cross reference is 4221, so that's lovely. I have no changes.
Surprise is not required.
I guess, yeah. Okay, so this would be final first read.
Yep.
Which would be in March. That was easy. Okay, so 4321.10 doesn't necessarily apply to our district, so I think we're all agreeing at this point in time, we're not going to have this, and plus it's not required for this meeting. Is everyone okay with that? Yep. Okay. 4321.11 is public report on revisions to district policies, practices, and procedures upon the finding of significant disproportionality. It's a required policy and will be moved. And we have a draft ready. Let me catch up.
I like the short ones.
What they
The
should-
required short ones are lovely.
Yeah.
It's just the law and the reg. Done.
I had no comments.
I had no comments.
Can we write final on this one?
Yes, please. Final. First read.
What is the term significant disproportionality?
It means like, let's say for suspending, let's like look at suspensions and you're seeing that we're significantly disproportionately suspending special education students over, bringing, general ed students. That would be a major issue.
It's a trend.
We're saying that we would have inequities within our programs and we wouldn't be going to our curriculum and regulations. So, yeah, the state, they come on that one. If we do our civil rights data, that follows into a lot of those things as well.
Hey, are we ready to keep going?
Yeah, I
You're
didn't have any change.
I can't,
Okay, 4321. I did.
oh, you did? All right, thank you for struggling.
.12.
This was his timeout and physical restraint, all students, it's required policy. We have a draft ready for today, but just so everyone knows, we actually have a policy at this number, which is called preschool special education, which we'll talk about next, but will be 4221.13. And we also currently have 4322, which is the use of emergency physical intervention. So I don't know if you would consider this 12 a new policy or not. It's kind of covered 4322.
So my suggestion is remove 4322 because they're duplicating the both of them.
If we do this.
Yeah,
Right.
so we do 4312.
4112.
Yeah, and
And is
then
it a second read technically? Because we have 4222.
we've never had it, so I think it's. a
Even though we
first-
have
Yeah, no,
42,
even though
okay.
we've had it, this is a first read of a new policy with a new number. I would definitely.
Okay.
Because it does both. It's for all students.
That's true.
Yep.
Okay.
So I would call it a first read. That would remove 4322 would be the recommendation.
Okay, so let's take a look at the draft. So we're looking at draft policy 4321.12. I know there's a lot in that folder. In the print order to be decided, 4321.8, are we're keeping our existing?
Yes. But on these, right, my suggestion is to only do 12 and not do any of the other exhibits. In there because the district already has policies and has procedures that they follow in the PPS department.
So we don't need,
I would, in the NISBA regulations, are slightly different and often what is already in place and budgeted and done. So I wouldn't go through the regulation.
I looked at it and I agree with you.
okay. So it looks like Arden's got a bunch of nice note that it's there for us.
Because it doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm just scrolling down to see if there's any other comments from people. There is not, and there's no complicated cross references.
So
So this would be final first read.
do you want to look at 4322 just to confirm that you agree to?
Yeah, I
remove it?
guess that's safe. That's, I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's housed right in.
You're already fine. You
I
already
looked at it earlier, so I'm good, but
I'm
go
good.
ahead.
I like the fact, I like how this is tight. This is very specific,
Mhm.
it's understood,
So do we,
contemporary language.
technically, we're gonna formally abolish 4322?
Yeah, we have to.
At the second read. Right?
Write it down right now.
Also, just no argument,
So this is first read.
and our existing 4321.12 is now 4321. Okay.
That's right.
Okay. 4321. Okay, 4321.13 is, there's a draft, and this is now the preschool students with disabilities, which is a required policy, which Voorheesville does have, but like, as I said, it's at right now at 4321.12. And there's a draft out here. Let's just see.
So since we have this one already, and it was in the 4321s and all we're doing is moving it, you could technically do this one as a second read if you wanted to.
This is just a renumbering.
And it's only a renumbering too. It really doesn't change significantly.
Doesn't it make sense just to move this all at once though?
That's what we're trying to do. Yeah,
I mean, honestly,
I think.
I don't think anyone cares if it's second read or, as long as we do it, give it a first read, give it a second read, it's final.
Yeah, That's
approval.
what we're trying to do. We're just trying to parse
If
out.
some gets read
Yeah, we're
three
just trying-
times, if some gets read three times, I don't think it's the end of the day.
Yeah, but for Jessica, I want to make sure that I help her because it will get confusing for her, which one gets on
Mhm.
this one,
Alright.
where you
Yeah.
call. So I want to make sure that we're clearly communicating to her what goes on to the agenda. Because it will get funky. with all
And,
of
and to
this.
the community. and stuff.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, I had some notes about these cross references. Um,
Why don't we just call it first read and call it today, makes it easy.
first reading. April, this does cross-reference the 4324. Oh, and I was worried about 4321.8, but we actually did that today.
Yep.
So that's what that comment was.
Oh.
So we just have to be careful about that 4321.4 again.
want to leave your comment up for now?
Yeah. why don't we do that? Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
Otherwise, I'm gonna mark the final.
I have no changes.
That's all 4321s, right?
Oh, Lord.
There's
No, no. There's page 2.
Oh.
Okay, we're close though. This is the last one, I think.
So it is, and, tonight I have one of the advisory advisory committee to the counseling program meetings. And I might mention this one just because we've lost a speech and language teacher. So Kendall Harden resigned in the last board meeting. So they're in a tough spot in terms of recruitment.
Well, we have an internal candidate for that position.
Oh, good.
But still trying to let them take a
Well,
look at it too.
Well, honestly, with St. Rose now, with the speech programs that are lost, SUNY Albany is going to be taking some of those over, but
Yeah.
the schools are lost already for speech. I mean, it's difficult, and for social workers. And the last time we were trying to find a social worker, we couldn't. We posted it for a year almost. Yeah, it was very difficult. Which Karen knows. She stresses out about
Yeah.
trying to get right candidates.
I'm sure Karen knows because she's looked at that.
So just for, on a recording 4321.14, special education personnel qualifications and training, it is a required policy and would be 2 years ago. And we have a draft policy that we're all looking at.
With a different type.
Oh, yeah. Maybe,
Well, and SUNY Albany now has a bachelor's program for special education, by the way. So they just got accredited for our BS program that a master's is all their master's programs.
I'll check
So
on the title.
it's very good for our school districts that are all going to be supporting each other.
Yeah, Tim is pointing out that the title here is different than. What should it be?
Well, it's what we're, on our agenda, it says
Which I
one
usually
thing.
take right off of the list of stuff, but maybe
You can do
Oh, yeah.
I can check on that. I'll put that on my list of things to worry about.
Can I still make this a final?
Yeah.
I'm good with either version of the title.
You are you good with either version of the title? I mean,
Well, I think it's more specific to what we have on the agenda,
okay.
qualifications and training. That's what you mean to talk about in this. Go there.
So that's fine. And once I fix that. First reading in March. And on our agenda, I was just keeping track of cross references. That was just really, that's what that note is. And we already decided on our approach, so. Okay, everyone. I think
Huge.
We have
That was,
done good work. Anyone have any final comments on this? No? Okay.
good job.
Okay, next on our, how we doing? 4 o'clock.
Good.
Next on our agenda, if we go to just keep going on order, is that okay with everybody? We have 8121.1 and the related reg, which is opioid overdose prevention. This would be a new policy. Yeah, sure. Sure, yeah, then, or to me. Thanks, man. Good luck. This would be a new policy and regulation for Voorheesville, but certainly not a new procedure. It is required. So, it's up to them.
And timely.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we spent a lot of time on this in our last meeting. We were pretty close.
So no, we spent a lot of time on the other policy 5420 that we had just started. And then we realized that we didn't have this policy that went with it. I think the district felt like 5420 met the needs of it. Remember, so then we went back and we got this one to be able to make sure that we have the policies. That's where we got.
Okay.
So I did make a couple changes. I just wrote down that, there's just some combo that will need clarification. And I added sections of 50/20 in it.
You did.
Yeah, I believe so. I think I wrote, it was a while ago, but I wrote notes on, so some of the stuff only in our current 50/20. Oh, right here.
The yellow highlight.
No, the Board of Education, the top part. And we do,
Yeah.
like, it's already in 50/20.
So you just like it, yeah.
It truly doesn't mean that.
Or you're saying take it out of here because it's in 5420 or?
I believe so.
Sure.
Really.
Okay, do we need to specify, like at the top of what page was it? Page 2, to any student or staff member experiencing a known, it shouldn't be any person, like, if
Well,
a
that's-
parent is here and starts overdosing on heroin,
As long as we
are
all
we
agree
gonna do
that
it?
we would, yeah.
I would hope so. I would hope so, so I would just say any person.
Change that.
I'll make it. God forbid. Percent did it and someone sued us for.
Well, and the training will tell you.
Well, but
it
it goes on to talk about their cumulative health record. We don't have that for a person.
Sure.
You don't.
Yeah, we got students, we got staff. So there may be 2 sentences there.
Okay, so we have, but I'll keep reading. But we have regardless of a previous history of opioid abuse, right? So we may not know that. I'm wondering if maybe we need to add that language in up there, Tim, like previous health record, regardless of.
Well, I don't know to what extent we are responsible for any record keeping of the random person who is required to.
No,
We're not required.
I didn't think so. So I don't know to what extent you want to.
You would have to state that we did it. Like, that would be a very important, you have to state that you did it and went through this.
Why doesn't it say whether or not there's a previous history? So why do we do that?
because it may not be opioid induced, but it may appear as if they're overdosing, and if someone chooses to give them naloxone.
So the training that I've had is sometimes a seizure could be seen as someone overdosing. So what they say is give it to them. It does nothing. There's no harm. So even if they're using or not using, known user, not user, always, if you think it's happening and you're not sure, do it.
I totally agree. I just didn't see why this
Yeah.
language was necessary, because basically we're gonna just do it.
But
I'm fine with leaving it.
I think it mimics the training that
Okay.
we received.
Actually, if we're gonna do it anyway, saying whether or not is probably helpful.
Okay.
Joe said this is the option that we utilize. Because there's multiple options.
The one in particular.
Yeah.
What is the yellow?
One.
On page,
Well, that's what we were talking about, I thought. We were talking about what Archie.
oh, but it says
Yeah.
it up top too. I thought we were. Anyway,
That's why I wasn't sure. Are we putting it on there?
This needs to be reviewed by our attorney.
Oh, this is not for us to move forward. This is for discussion only. In conversation, it's totally not. This got to go to the attorney. It's got to be vetted more. This is,
yeah, I said on our agenda too,
yeah.
so we wouldn't forget, once we are okay with this going on.
This
to
really,
the-
yeah, it needs to go back and then needs to come back to us. Oh, yeah.
Just so clear though, we currently stock naloxone.
Correct. Yep.
And we have the existing 5120,
Right.
which references it.
Right, which we've been using for.
Right.
So I think that covers the district. But yeah, I know this one needs a lot of vetting from our attorneys and everything.
Regulations is nice and short, which is welcome.
So Tim, to address your point, at the bottom of page 6, naloxone will be documented in the individual's cumulative health record. I think that should say students. Because above it says students when it refers to cumulative health record.
Mhm.
So I don't think it should be as broad as individual. We don't maintain health records.
Or student or staff. Oh, we don't really.
Oh, we do say, this says individual cumulative health record for students.
Oh.
We don't do
But-
staff.
Yeah,
So there is a reference to
says-
staff in the yellow that says for staff members in their personnel file.
It does also say or
But
consistent.
I was getting to the point of, you said random individual, parent
right.
required to have it. We're not keeping track of that in any official filing capacity.
No, or do we want to?
No.
But the nurses will, for their own
I agree.
licenses, they'll
Sure,
want to be able to make sure they have
Well,
record
they'll
that
make
they
a-
did
they
it.
have to make a record if they administer.
And if you want to say that, that's fine.
But that was in the personal, since it's will be in the nurse's record.
Hmm.
I think it's on.
This last part on six, the signs, the naloxone will be documented if the individuals came into a health record for students or consistent with applicable policies for care administered to staff. Documentation must include the date and time and route of administration, the signs and symptoms displayed by the student or staff member prior to administration. So that, I think we need to broaden as well.
Mhm.
Displayed by the person.
Yeah. I think it's on.
Yeah. It's a nice thing, right?
Well, that covers it.
Yeah, the person, sorry, Frank, the person's response to naloxone administration. I'm just taking out student, staff everywhere and making it person.
It already had person in it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would, hopefully would administer it to everybody.
Is everyone okay if this is ready to go over to legal?
Yes.
So page 110.1 and the R is ready for legal review.
Yeah, legal and medical director. I'm gonna do both.
You have to do it in this order.
I haven't decided that yet. I wasn't sure.
I think it's up to you.
Yeah, I wasn't sure which one should go first or not.
Seems
Well, then I'm gonna get discrepancies.
back
And
and
then
forth.
I think I'm gonna do medical director first and then attorney, because sometimes we see things differently.
Okay. It's okay to just keep going through the agenda? Everyone good?
Yeah.
Okay. 5550, student privacy. This was another discovery during our 5420, student health services. This would be a new policy for Voorheesville, and it is required. We have a draft.
Ready for combat.
This is the one I messed up originally because I thought it was 5,500 and no, it's 5,550. Which is fine, I looked at last month. Okay. So we started with the NISBA one. Looks like we got some comments, so. So the first sentence is, the board recognizes its responsibility to enact policies that protect student privacy in accordance with law. And of course, I agree with that. It got me thinking about what do we do to let the students and the parents know that the Chromebooks that are issued by the school, the district, can see what you're doing on them. Same with surveillance cameras, same with the halos in the bathroom.
I believe we have a policy.
I think it's referenced in the code of conduct.
Yeah, and I believe in the policy, it's stated that there is no sense of privacy when it comes to the school computer or network. I believe
Well,
when we
in the
did that.
policy it is, but like,
Yeah.
if I'm a student and I want someone to say to me, hey, here's your Chromebook, we can see everything you're doing on this. Hey, there's halos in the bathroom,
If you
right?
read the code of conduct and the
You don't.
technology thing that you signed that you read, it's in there. You choose
I
not to
don't
read
think
it.
students really do
Yeah,
read
I
it.
don't think they do
I think like
either.
the first
I did
year
not.
of having Lightspeed, nobody really knew about it, and it
Right.
caught people off
It
guard.
did. And students were upset. They're like, everyone's spying on me. I just
To
think
be fair,
it's,
so you know what spies on you unless we need it.
well, I
like,
know,
yeah,
but
you
you
know.
have the capacity
Right.
to, and I think as a student, especially a high school student, you're starting to be like, wait, what?
I think people were also unclear, I still am a little unclear. If you're on like a personal device and you log on to the school Wi-Fi, what exactly that entails in terms of what is it like private?
Right.
We can't pinpoint to you, but they do have network filters. So if something comes up and it says like someone's searching how to build a weapon or how to do those things, a network filter will go off and stop you from going, and there will be a notification that someone was searching it. They don't know exactly who, unless you use the login. It says page, because you do say you've done that. So there's a network unnoticed, but those are safety components that have to be put in the districts nowadays, unfortunately, because
I understand the safety component of all of these. I'm just trying to advocate for the students and their ability to be told this.
I believe when they sign on to the list, doesn't it say when you do the guest or not?
What if we, I don't know if this is already handled elsewhere, but what if this was called like student privacy rights? No, I mean, seriously, and you wrote it in such a way to say the student is afforded certain rights to privacy with the understanding that in place are ways in which people are paying attention to what you're doing.
I would like the attorney to look at that.
Yeah.
Just because you lose some privacy and rights as you enter into a school district.
Well, I know.
Yeah, so I just want to
Well, I agree.
agree with you, the writing it. And
I'm just giving it a title that would maybe bring it to attention that we're talking about, you have rights. And I think maybe a statement that says something to the effect of, don't think that the sky's the limit here. However that's properly stated, I don't know, but this just says student privacy. It might get more specific about what we're trying to talk about here. Protecting student privacy. You want to say that? You want to do it that way?
Well, I do think it already is in documents.
So I was asking you this, if it's in there, and she's checking it. It's in the code of conduct. There's
There
search,
is language in the code of conduct about student searches, student property,
but
lockers.
to Tricia's point,
Yeah, that's,
use of
yeah, my
computer
point is
networks.
not for policy.
in the beginning of the year, it
It's
would
for
be
the
easy
students
for,
to be told, Paige, welcome to history class. Before we start this year, just a reminder. We have surveillance cameras, we have light speed, we have payload, whatever
think-
class it's in.
well, I think that can actually, not even the class, I think when they do their first day assemblies, they're talking about it, that's something.
It would make me feel like at least we're being extremely transparent with the students.
And I feel like
But I
these
do think you
things-
want it in writing.
It is in
It is in
writing.
writing.
It is.
We're talking about speech. It's like just, because like you said, no one's reading it, right? The kids, as she said, no one's looking at that, right, until they need to. So reinforcing
You
that,
can do it on
That's
your
not a bad
code, your code days or
Right.
whatever those days
yeah,
are.
the first day assemblies, I think. Is the
What were
best
you
way
gonna
to
say,
do it.
Paige?
I don't think people really will feel their privacy is being violated until all of a sudden it's something they didn't know about. And I feel like that's when people get more like defensive about it.
So do you think it would be helpful
I think it would
to
be
be
very
told
good,
once?
yeah.
Yeah.
Because then it's not as much like you're being violated, like you know
Right.
exactly
Mhm.
what situation you're in.
I think it's a good idea. We'll add it to the first day assemblies.
Thank you so much. I love that. Okay. Under surveys, it says the Board of Education recognizes that student surveys are a valuable tool in determining student needs for educational services. In accordance with law and board policy, parental consent is required for minors to take part in surveys which gather any of the following. So this just triggered me. I know we used to at least always do the annual climate survey. I know full changes.
Well,
How do we?
I haven't done it yet because of this.
Yeah, so how do
Because-
we handle this part?
Well, because that's all I want to make sure. When I got here, I was asking these same questions of how do we do our surveys? What do we do? And it hasn't been clear. So that's why I have not done the panorama survey,
Mhm.
because I wanted to make sure our policy gets done first
Okay.
after that. And then we can send out the opt-outs and do those things that we have to do. But I really like having it written down very specifically, what we can survey and what we can't survey, because people will say, well, you should have told me that you were giving a survey for that. And honestly, it clearly says here, no, there's things that we don't have to tell you. This is things that are in there. So I do appreciate how it delineates
But
specifics
this
of
is
what
saying
we're
we
allowed to
have
do and not to
to,
do.
anything on this list
Correct. But there's other things.
that, aren't on this list that you.
Well, someone says, I want to paint the wall purple. And the parent goes, well, you didn't get my ability to say I could. Well, policy says if they're painting the wall purple and you get choice, you don't have to do that.
Right, but there are some things that are a little blurred, right?
And that's what that's what I wanted to have in the
Paragraph
conversation.
4, right? Illegal, antisocial, self-incriminating or demeaning behavior, right? Like some questions in the climate survey, I think could be answered.
That's why I say that, yeah.
So,
Or the county has those ones too, where it come out saying, have you used alcohol in the past 5 days? Are you using this? And those matters. Exactly.
So,
And
So how does this work though, that you need parental consent for any of these surveys that ask these kind of
You
questions?
could do a passive opt-out. You know, there's a lot of
Okay, that's
different
what
ways.
I'm getting at.
There's a lot of different ways you can do them. You can say, I'm gonna opt my child in,
Yeah.
and then they have to send in a letter saying that they will.
Yeah.
A lot of districts do passive opt-outs where they send in saying, if you don't want your child to do it, send in notification. So that's considered passive opt-out.
So we're assuming you're gonna fill this out unless we have the opt-out.
Right, correct.
And what happens if the parent says no?
And the kid doesn't take it.
Kid, and there's a way that we can match up and
Yep.
say, sorry, you can't take this
Yep.
because mom said no.
Yeah, that's simple. But
so what do you know?
Yeah,
I like this, because the mental or psychological problems of the student or student's family, like to me, that's important. When you're talking about MTSS and you're talking about services, because there are, when you give these out, and if a child writes down and then a survey saying that they want to self-harm themselves, and that enacts the district to do things, or they have, suicidal thoughts or things, mental illness stuff. Like, I want the parent to know that their child's filling something out like that, so they're not surprised when the district then reacts to it. Like, they should know that, this is a priority and something we're doing. So I think this is important to have. I like what's on it. It really gives us guidance. So I think it's better. I think it's a better protection for the district.
So you don't want any sort of like, you're in unless you opt out, you want consent.
What do you,
So the way this is written, parental consent is required. Right, and they have to provide written consent from the parent before administering the survey.
no, I would rather have the passive or the ability to develop that.
Okay, so then.
Because we're not gonna get all of them back, because sometimes people don't.
happens to all of us.
So then we need to tweak this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right, the paragraph under number 8,
And
right,
then
the same.
plans to survey students. Consent of the program.
So when would you capture the notice that you're opted in unless you opt out?
And how will a parent be able to survey it prior if they don't know what's happening?
Well, that's what we send out. the
Because of the
opt-out.
path that happened.
So you say,
You're saying for each survey?
yeah, we usually do it for like each survey you send out. You're saying, here, we're gonna be doing a survey. This is what it is. If you have any questions or concerns, please let us know. If you do not want your child to take it, please contact your building principal.
Okay, so that's different than.
Yeah,
we
so
need to
that's,
rewrite this.
yeah, that's what we need to rewrite. That's the basic way that most people have always done surveys that I've ever seen. And done myself.
So it's not in the, under the survey, is that first paragraph? It says parental consent is required for minors to take part in surveys. I think we need to change that. to, I think it's gonna be a notice requirement,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
So it should be parental notice is required.
I'm gonna have our attorney review this one as well, by the way.
Do you want me to tweak it or you want to mark it up, have the attorney mark it up
No,
consistent?
tweak it first, and then I'm gonna have them mark it.
I think parental notice is the right word.
I'm gonna change it now. You want me to suggest it?
I just changed it.
Okay. So how about we say parental notice is required, instead of before minors to take part in any surveys, why don't we say before minors are asked to take part in surveys? Right? Because even if the parent doesn't opt in, a kid could still refuse on their own,
Right.
right?
If you just said prior parental, or something, yeah, and that covered. Yeah.
I'll do requested instead of asked. Better.
So, yeah, I had made a comment down below.
And it's a great question.
So, well, I had highlighted the notification consent form. Yeah, will also apprise the parent guardian of their right to inspect the survey. So you just have to make sure whatever you're noticing.
Yeah, so like when I sent out the climate survey, we actually put in snippets of it, said, here's what it is, you know, like, if you want to see it, please let us know. Like, I think that's important to give that. I mean, as a parent, I'd want to know what my child's taking. At least have a better understanding of what it's doing.
Yeah, I'm gonna mark my comment as resolved.
Your next comment, though, I think is a good one.
I
For the
know.
marketing component.
It's like, wait, what? But let's wait till
I
our.
have this. In the event the district plans to survey students to gather information included in the list above, the district will notify the parent/guardian in advance of administering the survey of their child's option not to participate in the survey. The notification consent form will also apply to parent guardian to get consent form. The notification form will also apprise the parent guardian of their right to inspect the survey prior to their child's participation. Good.
So what if the student wants to do the survey and their parent doesn't want to take the survey?
And yep. And they don't take it. If the parent says no, and the kid's like, oh, yes, I really want to take it. Sorry, like, it's not happening.
What is
Under 18.
Well, Dad, I've been meaning to talk to you about my political affiliation.
I mean, there's nothing to prevent the district from, from asking the student, is there anything you want to tell me, right?
How will you manage that? If you have a parent opt out, you just have to make sure you tell whatever teacher is administering the.
Yeah, the principals usually take.
They
care of
handle
that. They handle that. But they usually have a system in place, a
Yeah.
notification, or pulling the child out or doing something different. Again, I can't speak to the specifics because each person will probably do it a little bit differently, but they have a process because they know in the end, they're gonna be held accountable.
Yeah.
If the child takes the survey that they get administered.
Is there a natural progression where a parent would say, I'd like to know what my child said in response to this, and will you be sharing that information with me?
I think if it's the mental health ones, you know, again, I've never really had that happen, but I do believe like the more, because some places do real big MTSS and mental health screenings now, like it's changing in education and they're starting to switch that mindset a little bit more. I think you're going to see more of it. I can't answer it completely with it is happening and how it is happening.
I could see it, you know, if you send this notice out to a parent, you say, this is the stuff that's in the survey.
They're gonna
And
learn.
as a parent, go, can I have access to that?
Yeah.
And what's the answer?
You can say yes.
I would think yes, it's part of their educational.
Right.
Is it a yes?
I would say, I would have to check with the attorney,
Yeah.
but my inclination is, yeah, I mean, the kid took it, it's educational record.
Well, now, the kid might be thinking, look, I want to say some things on this
If
survey.
I were in that situation, I would want to be informed of the fact that it
Yeah.
was able to be taken.
That's your.
I think, you know what?
That's
Let's ask that to the attorney, right?
Also, I'm just curious if it says like, they'll be notified of their child's option not to participate. Does that make it clear that like the parent can override their child's decision? Like, I don't see that.
I think the kid just doesn't pick up the pencil or hit the.
No, I mean, in terms of if the
How it's
parent
written.
doesn't want the kid to take it, but the kid does, I'm just not sure that that's
Oh, I
like
see.
My guess is that,
written down.
that parent's never gonna see that form. What would happen in my house?
Yeah, there's a lot of, potential landmines here.
Again, it's required, so that's. I'm writing a note to myself if we want to see the survey is, what is the district response? That's for the attorney.
I mean, speaking away from the policy for a minute, if you want honest feedback from the student, I'm not sure, I think there's gonna be some students who think, I'll give you honest feedback, but you can't share this with my old man or my mom. Can't do that. Cause I'm gonna tell you
That's a
what,
breach.
yeah, it's a breach. Yeah.
But what, right, what is considered education? I don't have the answer.
I don't know.
It's really good. Because what is education record? What is the parent privy to or not privy to? Like, again, I think that's got to be really sorted out by the attorney.
Right.
Good questions.
Are there usually questions on it about like domestic violence and like abuse?
There has been, so like, let's say you give an ACEs survey, you know, like adverse childhood experiences, that might come up. I mean, I've done ACEs survey only when done by like the guidance counselor or psychologist, but
Specific
has
to
been
a
done.
particular student.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes that does happen or occur. It's random, but you might ever get a survey that talks about, have you ever had trauma in your life? And here's what trauma is. And then they would just say yes or no. So maybe you would see something like that. So it
Because I
could fit
just
into
think
that realm.
if there was someone who was like suffering abuse and the person abusing them could access the thing where they tried to like tell somebody that could be. And I don't think that they would like share.
I think this is a good question for the attorney. And I'll bring these up because you're pointing out all really things that I don't have answers to, nor does
That's a really
even
tough
the
one.
attorney in the room.
No, not an education.
Yeah.
Law attorney.
Yeah, so that's, let the law attorneys address that one. And same what Trisha's on that.
Yeah, this whole marketing section
Yeah,
made me uncomfortable.
I'd rather have the attorney weigh in on this one too, because I don't know what this means.
Because it's suggesting we can sell certain information.
For the test and assessment, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
I will say that now that we're going through college board process, like, once your kid creates one of those accounts, I know.
Just 50 emails a day.
Then like military recruitment, we're obligated.
Right.
You know, that, unless parent opts out of it.
So we don't necessarily need, you're gonna discuss my question.
Yeah, I think the
Okay.
attorney really needs to weigh in on this and then we bring it back afterwards.
Well, I think access to the data is a real important question. Hey,
Definitely.
who needs
right?
to see this?
Yeah, I think it's a great question.
Mhm. Well, it's not just for the survey. This is talking about just things in general,
Yeah.
the marketing section.
Oh, that part, yes. I
Yeah.
agree with you. Yeah. I'm just thinking of that
I don't think
parental,
parents
I'm
would-
more thinking of to what extent the parent guardian has access to this information if the survey's been completed.
Definitely that, but also there's.
But yeah, if
plenty of
you're opening
parents
it up
would
to a lot of
not be
people.
happy if you're selling their kids' information.
Well-
No.
Well, the thing is, we have everybody sign privacy acts now, right? Like, you can't, Law 2D says you can't sell student information, so
Yes,
that,
this is weird.
yeah, so let's make sure that.
Yeah.
And see why,
Why would NISBA draft that, Tim?
well,
I don't know.
well, I'm
It's
wondering
horrible.
if because it's required if they took it from somewhere, I don't know.
I don't like this law.
Does anyone happen to have a charger? My computer's dying quickly. I
I
don't know.
only have, can you look
It's a
under the-
USB-C, no, I don't have
Is this
that.
one in for you?
No.
I got like the oldest computer in the world there. Museum quality.
We're gonna switch seats.
We're gonna get this one? No, it's bigger.
Play an instrument?
I'm sorry.
You just enjoy the blues?
I do.
Usually my computer doesn't crash that.
When it comes to the invasive physicals, I had an email our medical director because I was like, what is this? We have them. And here's what he said. He goes, I don't do hernia checks anymore when I do physicals. So that's how he was explaining it to me. So he's like, there's certain things that I don't do anymore when we do physicals because they are invasive into it. What he said as a suggestion is if you're gonna have this, because there are times where a medical director may come in to do a physical for their child if that's needed, that
Wait, what number are we on?
it's the next one down. It's the same policy, but it goes to the medical component.
Okay.
Invasive physical examinations. He said, if you're going to have the policy in there about invasive medical and you're required to do so, he said, you would want to be able to give the parent an option to be in the room, not just be in there. So his suggestion was add that. So I did. He goes, I would have no issue with the parent being in the room if you're doing that. And he goes, I would rather that, you know, a lot of times as well. So I did add that into it. And
So that's now defined as invasive?
he said that he would
I mean,
do
it's
it.
not, there's no working, prodding.
Just handling it.
Yeah.
But he says he doesn't even do those anymore. So.
Team attorney.
I have no idea, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have 3 boys and
Right,
I know what happens in their fiscal system.
but I think when you're talking about coming into the school for doing something,
Yeah.
again, I couldn't understand the scope and need of when this would happen. Because I mean, honestly, who send it out? Go get it from your own doctor. Right. And that's what we're kind of looking at too, is how do you provide services? So I think this is an important thing just to keep in there if you need it. Again, attorney. I would love
Yeah,
to do that,
attorney,
yeah.
Needs a good scrubbing.
Mm.
Under the notification part, I just made a note. I know Frank, you were keeping kind of a list of the required annual notifications.
They did not put this on there.
So that's why I just made that comment. Add this to our list if it wasn't there already. You okay if I get rid of my heading? Want to leave it there until it comes over?
Could you leave it
Sure.
on there for now? I'd rather do that, so that way if I lose it, or forget to do it, it's a reminder.
And that 1420 you've added because
Yes,
in the cross reference.
that would make, okay.
I like that.
I was like, oh, that would be
If
good,
everyone
okay.
is ready, okay with that. All right, so should we mark this as ready to go to the attorney and or medical director, and then it'll come back to policy at some point? Is that okay with everyone?
Yes.
Can I just ask though on the medical part, do you want us to write it? To include an option for the parent to be present during the examination?
I did, with
You
the
did?
opportunity to be present in the exam if they so wish to do so. It's the second sentence from it. Help
Oh,
your
I
child
see it.
out and with
Okay.
the opportunity to be present in the exam if they so wish to.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
That's good.
Okay, so it is 4:30, and I want to be respectful of people's time. I personally can stay if you want to continue on, but I totally understand what people can. Okay. Can you just tapping out?
How
does it
much
work?
do we have left? Cause
We have the graduation policies.
I really want to get to those.
Should we just table those for next? How about we try to do the rights of employees to express trust note, since that,
Yeah.
is that one okay to just,
Yeah, that one. too.
and if we could quickly actually do 5020.3,
By
that kind of
page.
goes with our other. Thank you, Paige.
Good night,
Thanks,
everyone.
Paige.
Appreciate your input.
Dave, if there's anything on these that we look at it later or have a conversation, let us know.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
thank you. Have a good night.
Which one? 5020.3? Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be nice
Yeah.
to go as a
Oh,
group
that
and
one.
the breast, express breast milk one. Oh, you wanted the 9, which would be quick too.
Like something.
Okay, so where do we want to jump to?
I did not have any comments on 5020.
Does anyone have anything? This is an existing policy, just so you know, and it came up because it's cross-referenced in that 5420. It's also cross-referenced in things we've discussed today. Yeah, I had nothing as well.
Are you looking at 50?
20.3.
20.3.
Yeah.
I'm good.
I'm good too.
I think that's fine. Okay, I'm ready for second reading. I don't think that has to come with a big group.
I think I can go off next time. But you should write that though then. So that one will go in March.
Yeah. Okay, 95, 20.6. Okay, and so this is a required policy that would be new to Voorheesville. However, we do currently have some procedures in place, so
We're in compliance.
we're in compliance. But we just need a policy.
The note that is on there, could we just leave that on there?
Yes,
Jeff's question?
no,
No,
Frank's
my
first.
question, after approved, needs to go in new hire binder. The teacher for returning training, no?
That's a marker for yourself.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, then Jeff did have a question. If you see it.
That was my question too.
All right, so
That was exactly where I was thinking. I don't understand that component of it. 'Cause what does it mean paid for unpaid?
in-
When you're working while you're pumping, you get paid.
Well, what's considered working?
If you do that, or
You're here, right?
I assume it doesn't even teach you in the classroom.
Well, yeah, I think that's what, so,
Like, that's work time,
right. So you're still doing it. So like that, so you just, so if it's during the day and you're here, you get paid, it's no question asked, correct? Like that's
There's
what
not,
it is.
is there a such thing as unpaid break?
Well, that's what I don't know what that, like,
I didn't know what that is.
Well,
for
I think there isn't
For
like the corporate
UEV,
world.
right? Non-instructional, well, the non-instructional staff, right?
So maybe they're taking the law from that and
Yeah,
it
like-
doesn't exactly apply to
Yeah,
us.
I don't think that. It's, you're expected to do this on time during the day, you're gonna be paid, of course, there's no penalty.
Right.
Right.
Well, personal here, but I went through 3 kids and I used to work while I was doing it.
Yes, I was able to too.
Yeah. I mean,
So do we take out unpaid break? Or do we just leave it in there and just say,
if this is Melissa's recommendation, I would leave it in.
I'm just gonna say, Jeff,
If it-
whenever they're pumping, it's paid.
Well, if they're working, if
Right.
you're doing it during like a break and you're reading a book or doing something not work related. then-
Like their lunch break, is that?
I think that's
lunch
what
break
he means. But it's not salary,
paid? It's salary.
right? So I don't
So-
know how you delineate paid or
Right.
unpaid for that.
Yeah, how would you take it
I
out?
would, that's what I was trying to figure out, like.
But you might have someone that's not salary.
Well, that's what I'm like, if it's a custodian.
Yeah.
Or, or someone who's on those breaks and not breaks, like I think I
So they
understand
probably
that.
do have paid and unpaid breaks, right?
Again, me, I wouldn't,
If I
I
was
wouldn't even
a,
bother with it.
if I was
You need
a,
to go and do it, and don't worry about it.
if I was a female bus driver and I was between runs, is that a unpaid break time?
They get their allotted 2 hours anyways,
All right,
so it doesn't matter, so it's considered just break.
just break.
Yeah.
What if you just took out paid and unpaid, and just had break times?
They're on the clock though.
Yeah, they're on the
I
clock.
just think it's.
It's
if
adding too
they're-
much
Yeah,
question.
I do, I
Not
just think it's,
necessary.
yeah, I just think if they're here, it's paid.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that, but how are you comfortable?
As long as there's no employee with this work, I'm not sure if we'll get a vote.
Well, how about I check with the attorney to make out the
Yeah, I
safe side,
just
how
don't
about that?
know enough about who gets paid how.
And if the attorney is fine, it doesn't need
Yeah.
to come back to this group, does it? Is everyone okay with going? Okay.
that's a good one to figure out.
Yeah,
They could come back to collective bargaining negotiations or something like that, you never know.
yeah, I just wasn't sure what this meant, and then Jeff asked the same question, so.
Okay.
Okay, just a little bit further down,
there's lactation room requirements. And then I noticed further in the policy, there's also like, you know, if you don't have this, you have to just try your
I
best.
confirmed this one with Aaron.
And we're set, we have a nice space, like with the sink and privacy.
The sink has to be near it. It doesn't have to be in a room with the sink.
Yeah.
So it was pretty clear on the privacy aspect of it. So I attached over on the other side,
Mhm.
the memo from the attorney of the guidance.
And of course, if we
Yeah.
had a space that had.
You're
that,
you're gonna do everything you
We
can
would.
in the very first part to have it be appropriate and at the needs. And I don't think there's ever been a time where somebody says, go into the custodial closet and pump it. Right? You've never ever heard of that. If it is, that's absolutely horrible. You know, people try to accommodate. You know, I've never heard of somebody doing that, but I think again, this is regulation.
Right,
And
and
they're
the
the same
same,
with the law. is.
further on, I had the same question about the refrigerator. We're fine there too,
I
out of
would
practice.
so. I have not heard negative otherwise.
I think a lot of this is just, everybody just accepts it. I mean,
Right,
kids are getting older and
Yeah,
they used to just. don't-
yeah, maybe
that's
at one
okay.
point in time, it was necessary to specify this, and now it's
This
more
is new.
accepted practice.
This is a
I
new
know.
regulation that came out though, so it makes you wonder.
Well, yes, so people are, right, I'm comfortable with it. If
Let me check with the attorney.
the attorney, do you want me to mark it final, or do you want to leave it as draft?
I'd leave it as draft for now until the attorney.
Okay, so. We'll leave it as a question if we're bringing it to full board.
So, Aaron. Usually I don't put names on of the attorney, but this is a different attorney,
Okay,
that we typically use. So if you see the name that's in there, it's because she is the one who sent the guidance in the first place and really has been understanding. So that's kind of nice.
and then if people don't mind trying to go to 9570 and I'll try to get you out of here. Okay, this is, 9570 is retired employees' health insurance. We do have a policy, and we've had some recommended change of language.
The recommended change of language actually stemmed because Jim actually was already doing it. So I will say that he's already made the change, and can always change it if needed. And we did talk about this during contract negotiations, which is like, we're already doing. Keeping it the same as they retire, so it's not changing. Like if somebody's at 81% and then we move it to 80%, they're still gonna pay 81%.
So the terms in place when you retire. Or the terms that continue.
The percentage rate that they're paying into
Where.
It's down at E.
E premium changes A.
I don't disagree, however, when the time comes for you to bargain this in the future, if it ever comes up, I would suggest that there needs to be some sort of caps put in place. This is open-ended, and I do believe that there are going to be some budgetary constraints associated with the amount of money you're spending on retiree healthcare as time goes on. You have people who are retiring at younger and younger ages, well before 65 when they're eligible for Medicare. I can tell you, in my world, it was, you had to work a certain number of years, and we got 10, which is fine. And for example, I get a reimbursement from my former employer, 50%, not 80%. And it's up to $1 a month, premium dollar amount. So there's a cap.
So it allows the company to be able to regulate
Yeah, I mean, you
what their
know,
budgets are gonna be.
there's a cap, and they could adjust that cap, you know, and they could adjust that percentage. But it's set forth where it's something that is, I think, a reasonable compromise between the retiree and the employer that allows them to understand that, you know, this is a cost center that could explode. And it's one that we should at least pay attention to. I'm not trying to take away anything from anybody but I do think this is an area where could become a bargaining priority in the future.
So something to look at and keep in mind.
Something to look at.
So this could be over time, more or less favorable.
Yeah.
Right? You don't know how it's gonna.
Yeah, I've talked to Jim about it. He feels that there's no issue with it currently. But I think it's, having that understanding and looking at it, will be important to know. I don't think it's a bad thing to keep in mind as we move forward, just making sure we evaluate it clearly and what the long-term effect of this will be on the district and on the employee. Yeah.
People are living a lot longer and there's a lot more expensive medical procedures available to them.
Never
Me,
made
I just had cataract surgery, all right?
Bionic eyes.
Huh?
Now you have bionic
I
eyes.
got bionic eyes, bionic ears. the whole
Next
neighborhood.
knees and hips.
There's nothing
That's
wrong with
coming, I'm sure.
There's never anything wrong with looking into something, understanding it and understanding the full impact of it, right? It doesn't mean you're changing anything or doing anything. You're just understanding what are the outcomes.
Well, in this case, what I would at least ask is, how do we compare? And if everyone else is doing the same kind of ballpark, I get it.
Yeah, you need to-
But for your contract negotiation, folder, your, like next cycle, it's a good one to flag.
It is.
Something that might. be
Something to look at.
position.
Is everyone okay with the language? Okay, marking it as final, and this can go to the next board meeting,
Even second.
the second one.
So we're having-
5, 7. Okay, and Tim had requested, I don't know if you have time about the substitute policy, so I didn't want to just recognize this.
So I'll just say real quick, I think the suggestion that we got from a community member on how to rewrite this policy makes a lot of sense. In terms of establishing preferences, and giving the district flexibility. And so this is who we want, but if we can't get those people, then we're gonna have to take whoever's available.
And as I tried to point out when this was brought up at the board meeting, I had offered back on January 10th.
Yeah, we just haven't had a meeting.
I understand, but I had offered, it originally said, for 2 years of post-secondary education or vocational training. And I suggested, in response to those who were concerned about the flexibility there, or work experience, just adding those words.
Let's go into the policy.
Hmm?
Want to go, let's go in it and
Okay,
draft language.
what's the number is that one?
So if it were stated as a preference,
It's a
this year,
substitute teacher.
do you feel the need to incorporate work experience?
Oh, I'm just trying to be more flexible. I consider this to be minimum qualifications.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, if we're gonna write it, and I'm not saying we are, but if we were to write it as a preference, then our preference is that you have some, I think, that you have some form of training or education, not necessarily work.
Here's what I'm trying to avoid. The 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old who has been assigned as a substitute for the day, and maybe for longer than a day.
Right.
I understand the need for flexibility. I'm not trying to hamstring anybody, but there comes a point in time when I don't think that some of these people are yet a level of professional skill and maturity. Maybe professional's not even the right word, skill and maturity to handle being in charge of 23 kids day after day for a whole day. It's a tough job. I'm trying to acknowledge that. This is a tough job.
I will tell you,
I'm
Tim,
worried about that.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I think it's important to note that this conversation is actually help gear and look into the practices that the administrators look at, saying, if I have a student who's, brand new, who's home from college and we need them to cover, which does happen, right? I've done it for years, it does happen. It begs the question of, are we being mindful of where we put that person to make sure that they're successful? And that's been the conversation that really has been most productive and fruitful from this with the administrators, is saying, if I have this experience and I have somebody coming in, am I training them to be a good substitute? Am I helping them be successful if they're going to be here? And what is my best practice to do so? So there has been good conversation that's come out of that, Brad. And so, for example, if we have someone who's home from college and it's June and it's their first year, right? Because I think that's where you're going. And, you know, they've never done in school, they've never done it before. You know, I've had administrators say, you know what, I might change my practice and say, offer it to teacher assistants first who are in the classroom. They know how to do it. Then that person who's in there, who's never been in a classroom, is with a teacher, can see what good teaching looks like, get some training, because we don't train our substitutes. So, but it might be a point in time where it's preferred, because there might be a point in time we just need supervision, right?
Well, I
So,
get it.
yeah, and I think that the preference component really does help, but the conversation's been really fruitful in just understanding our practice.
Well, I liked what you said, I think it was a couple meetings ago, and we talked about the fact that maybe we could take a teacher's assistant who's in this classroom, put them in the substitute role in this other classroom for the day. And this person, another sub, very inexperienced, could be in that teacher assistant role with a veteran teacher. I think that's a great way to staff it.
Okay, and we have some teacher assistants who are certified teachers.
So I'll
Like
just-
that does happen. So like we have
That's
a
the sub
couple,
I'm looking for.
right? We have a couple on staff that are certified teachers.
Yeah.
So that does make sense.
The one concern I have there is, you know, for special education students, a lot of times the teaching assistant is the person who
I certainly
provides
understand what you're
the
saying.
primary support to that student during the day, and having that disrupted means that kid
Unfair to that child.
But
Is-
right.
not gonna have a productive day.
And I think that's a conversation the
So-
administrators have to understand before they make that decision.
Yeah, no, I know, it's not an easy choice, just saying that's a potential downside to that.
And if you have someone who's on a one-to-one specifically, you would never do that because
Right, but
you can't.
And also, if you are gonna ask a TA to shift up to be a teacher, is it their choice? Could they say, I would
So
prefer
it
not
is
to?
their choice, and it is also lucrative for them because it does change their pay scale.
Okay.
So it gives a different.
But they have
opportunity.
the option to be like, I don't think that's.
Oh, absolutely, but it also is an opportunity for them to get a little
Yes,
bit more.
I was just making sure they're not forced.
Because I know we talked about that before about, you know, what we pay our teacher assistants and, you know, the level of pay that is an opportunity for them to earn more as they are in the
If they
district as well. Yeah.
I'm not trying to hamstring anybody. I'm happy to keep it a level of flexibility. If this is too harsh, but honestly, my main concern is the 18, 19, 20-year-old who's coming in and spending a whole day with the class. That's a lot of work and that's a big responsibility. And I do worry that that's a day lost for those kids.
And I agree with Artie. I think the preference component of that, because again, we have to look at, are we training ourselves? Are we helping them learn and get to the components that we need, or do we just need that body? Do we need to have that?
So are we all comfortable saying this is what our preference is? This is
I
the
think
requirement.
I think that's a really good sort of happy medium, right? We're saying this is who we want in our classrooms, but also recognizing that if we can't find someone who has those qualifications, we have to, as a district, provide supervision for our kids while they're
I
in the
understand
classroom.
that. Cool, I
So-
understand.
I think that's the approach I think is.
I can live with it.
I can live with that as well.
Who wants to make the change?
Can we do it in the next meeting?
Yeah.
There's no.
There's no rush
urgency.
on this.
Sure, okay. So I'm just gonna note, we all,
I know, this has been a.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be. This has
No,
been a
no,
good
yeah,
meeting.
it's
No, it's good. It's
We got
just,
through a lot, it's just I have other
So
responsibilities.
before we leave, I'll just make notes after the meeting and pass them back out, because it was a lot, just what we're gonna do
Yeah.
for each meeting, what's gonna come back to policy, and is everyone comfortable with that graduation group we'll add to our next policy?
Yeah,
And is there anything else people want added to our
can
next
I just
policy?
say on the graduation policies, like on the valedictory class, I have a lot of questions about how the valedictorian and salutatorian are determined.
yeah, so.
And, like, what goes, it says GPA, but what gets calculated into a GPA?
So I don't have that in here, right? So I don't,
I do,
So-
I do,
so
and I.
forty-seven
hate to
seventy,
do it, but-
so our current 4771 valedictory class, I don't have as a discussion item, or like the 4770, the new 4771, 4772, and 4773, those are good for discussion. The other one, I think it begs a lot of conversation, because do you want to even continue to have a valedictory class, or is that limiting our students' recognition? Like, and I'm even talking to like some of the counselors, they're like, we need to revisit some of this. So I think this is maybe a conversation, we bring counselors in, we have a better conversation. I think it's a much bigger question now.
Well, I think so
Like,
too.
and I think I sent the link to you of the school districts that even have
It's in the
valedictorian.
shared drive.
Right, and I shared it, and then schools that don't, I mean,
a lot though.
there's, it's a change, and that's a huge shift and a huge conversation that I think it warrants at least the discussion.
Do you want that at our next meeting?
I think we should try and tackle it.
Invite guidance in or?
Yeah.
Or at least,
because, I
yeah.
mean, There's,
Good
Who
idea.
wants to
there's a
come?
lot of questions that,
They'll have better answers. I'm not gonna be able to answer them.
to me, the language that we have right now is very wishy-washy. It's not clear.
Right. And I think the question is maybe, does the board still want a valedictorian excluded? Right, because that was, look at what other districts are doing, like I shared that link.
You're saying that it's into a GPA. Is there a decision made by somebody, like the high school principal,
Well,
who deems this is the person who's the valedictorian?
well, it stems out of the valedictory class, so there's a limiting factor.
10% or
Yeah,
something.
there's a limiting factor within that, but it comes from GPA, and I know there's been,
But who deems somebody to be valedictorian?
it usually comes from guidance GPA, from what I can tell.
But how is that GPA calculated?
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
and
listen, I have
we
heard
personally-
I've heard the stories of issues that have come from the district before.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, but
It
as I've
used to
been,
be,
yeah.
more wishy-washy.
so I've heard
actually
that when I
quite
started to dig
reasonable.
into this, it definitely bears a lot of conversation.
I remember before it got changed to this. I think when Brian Hunt came, they changed it a lot
Yeah,
to get to this.
but I still heard
But
that.
I'm not suggesting it doesn't need further.
Is this kind of a cousin to the discussion we were having about the relationship between parents and coaches? I mean, to what extent, my kid should be, no, a decision's been made
It's a
by
very,
somebody who has a right to make that decision.
I think some kids, our kids too, I have to say that, we have a lot of students who pride themselves on academics. And they want to be, right? They want to be there. Like, we have kids that,
They want that.
I think again, I'm
Or
making
they
an
work
assumption,
toward that.
but if I were to say no valedictorian, I think we'd have some students who'd be very upset.
Absolutely.
We also have a lot of students who are children of employees.
Mhm.
Right? So is that a factor? Does that weigh on?
Ooh,
I don't
didn't even
know.
think of that.
There's a lot there.
I mean,
Like
there's
said,
a
this is-
lot.
This is,
There's
this
a
is
lot
a
here,
big,
correct?
there's a lot on this one.
Comparatively.
And I don't know if the valedictory class limits and segregates our students. I have a question about that I don't have an answer to, is, does that limit our students' potential? Are we putting limits on our kids that, will end up creating an opportunity for them or not taking an opportunity for them? So this is a big,
Is it, we were talking about student surveys. Have the students ever been asked this question?
I don't think if the adults can answer the question, I don't even think it's been.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
even
no, what I'm saying is, when I go to the graduation ceremony, I see the person who's been selected as valedictorian speaking. It looks like everybody is very respectful of the fact that this person is the valedictorian and deserving of that honor.
Yes,
I
I think the question comes,
I'm
how
wondering-
is that honor developed? And is
get
that
it.
honor?
All right.
Right, and that comes, and do you even still need that honor? Because again, if you look at other districts, I'm not saying I'm pro or against, and please understand that. It's just, it begs a good conversation.
My point being, I'm not sure that anybody's questioning this, except maybe there are parents.
But there's,
I just think there are.
There's-
and
yeah,
The
even
kids seem to accept it.
No, I think even
No?
at the student level, like,
no, I think
No.
there's a
All
lot of
right, I'm
questions.
wrong,
about this.
I'm wrong.
Yeah,
because there's different rigor involved in people's grades.
One.
yeah, and what's weighted, what's not
And
weighted.
we don't weight at our district.
So,
I'm not saying that's right or wrong either, but I just think it
I could
does.
ski on into that valedictorian, but taking my cooking classes.
right, and the kid who.
And
took
there's nothing
10
wrong with that.
APs,
They're both achieving at high levels for
Right.
themselves, so who are we to
Right.
say who
Right.
deserves the
They're
honor?
achieving at the best of their ability.
Or maybe even above, and it's cooking, but that's huge for them, so why are they candidates? So yeah, it's very.
And taking that,
Mhm.
you have that valedictory class where they're recognized as high achievers, but you have a kid who's special education or a kid who's just middle of the road who's only done those courses, they don't get that.
And the
So
fact that they're
we're-
even graduating sometimes is such a huge
Yeah.
lift.
I know.
So there's a lot here. This is
That is.
not gonna be a one and
I
done
think she
policy.
should take the lead on this one.
You might not agree with me.
I think,
Yeah, this is gonna be a long time. This one's gonna have to really, I think, have a lot of scrutiny, a lot of input. We're gonna have to come back and forth. on it.
Yeah, and if for any reason we did change, I think we'll probably have to phase it in.
Oh,
So the current seniors aren't like, whoa.
oh, I don't see us changing it this year.
No, I don't either, but just whenever and if ever you do, you gotta give the kids that are in the track the opportunity to, maybe, I don't know. It's messy. Yep. Which is why it's probably just like it is and hasn't been touched.
yeah.
Well, it's easier not to touch the ones that are
They're real.
controversial.
That's why, yeah,
The ones that will,
the other ones we can definitely get
That's
through.
not why I'm here, Frank.
all right, listen.
That's true. That's not why we were
All
hired.
right, we gotta
for
take the
this
hard
position.
questions.
So next, meeting, do you want to invite guidance in and we'll
Yeah.
just like start that conversation?
And I'm gonna have a conversation with them first about it
Absolutely.
and what kind of organize some thoughts
Yeah.
too, and maybe
We
prepare a
want
little
them to
bit.
be prepared.
Yeah, well, I don't want them to feel like they're getting attacked, you know, because,
Oh, we've never.
well,
done
no,
that.
but, you know, well, why do we do this or how do we do this? I would like to get those questions ready and give them some pre-questions if we
Well,
could,
Also,
because it will
does it
help them.
matter, right? Like particularly for like Kristen Huntington. Like, does any of this matter for the kids that want to go on to the college or something else, right?
It doesn't because you already have been accepted before you know through the ballot,
And I've had
Right.
conversations with him.
but it might help with
But
the grad
if
school.
you would calculate a class rank,
Yeah.
right?
Which
And
we
you
don't.
could present, we don't, right? And you could present that, or would that help students who wanted to go?
Yeah.
What's their experience? I don't know.
And I know
do that.
Tim, and I will be honest, I've talked to Tim and Kristen about this, and they both agree that they need to have conversation. This is something that they want to have a conversation about. So it's a needed thing. I think that will be positive. I just want to make sure that,
I wish Paige was here for this too.
I know, it'll be a good one.
She'll be here next time.
She'll be here next time and I'm sure she has thoughts.
Oh, I'm sure she does.
So hopefully though, at next meeting, we can at least get through the ones that are easy and there is that one in there that's required, which would be nice to have before the
Yeah, and again-
4772 and R,
Yeah, and I believe that.
which was very easy language. I think
Yeah.
that's gonna be an easy lift.
Yeah, I don't think that one will start.
Is there anything else? So we definitely have the graduation group, the substitute policy, the stuff that's coming back that we talked about today.
I mean, nice to have a one-on-one meeting.
Yeah, we'll definitely do 1 hour. We have our future meetings, so if people want to look through that, if there's anything that,
I sent out you a email today,
okay, oh, the AI.
the AI, and really, really good, wasn't it? That Rachel and I and Shauna sat in on. Huge policy.
Does NISBA have any policies on this yet?
I don't know.
I wonder, I'm
I don't know.
gonna have to ask.
I am a retiree.
No, I'm saying it out loud. I'm looking at you. I haven't asked him. Come on.
We could find out, but I would tell you that the people who spoke on this were really extraordinarily experienced and thoughtful and knowledgeable. And they are not, you know, they were a lawyer from down Hudson Valley, and somebody from Connecticut, and somebody from Brooklyn, and they're from different places and different points of view. It was really, really good. I mean, there's a whole bunch of watch out, and then there's a whole bunch of, but there's great things you can do with it. So it's a,
All the medical
Some-
implications. I bet you colleges are ahead of,
the one guy,
on this
if you
game,
look at,
how they manage it.
if you look at my notes, the one guy who was out of Connecticut, he's with this Skills 21 at Ed Advance, and they had this program that kids are assigned a project, and they use AI, and it keeps it within the kind of the guide rails, you know. So it said you could ask certain questions, and it will keep you there. It's not going to allow you to go out into the wild blue yonder and come up with all sorts of stuff that's not going to be useful to your project. But it's a kind of a mini use of AI for a specific purpose. He has some extraordinary examples of how kids at a variety of levels are using this.
Right.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And I gotta give credit to Shauna. She's on these, she knows them.
Yeah.
She really does understand it, leading that charge and helping the district understand it better.
The implications.
Yeah, the implications
benefits.
and benefits and training, right? She's
Yeah.
done some, a really good training for our
Well,
staff.
that's good to hear. All right,
Okay, our goal next meeting is 1 hour.
I am down on that.
I can handle